So thank you and welcome. Thank you for joining us here at the United States Marshals Museum for our K through second program on the United States Constitution, our first 5 freedoms, grades K through second again. So before we get started, let's go ahead and I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Veronica and I'm the outreach manager here. And then you may hear him a little bit, it is Dave Kennedy, and he is our curator. There is his hand, and he takes care. Oh, I hear someone. Is that Barling's class? All right. He takes care of all the items here at the museum, and he helps shares the story. Well, he does the sharing of the stories. So he's here to help with any technology pieces or maybe some questions that you have that I may not have an answer to. So a little bit more about our museum. Can we go to the next slide, please? Here's a picture. Has anyone been to our museum? I do see some local classrooms here. Anyone been? We're at 789 Riverfront Drive. This is in Fort Smith. So if you're in Fort Smith or close to Fort Smith, come on down and see us. And if not, tell your parents and take a vacation and come over here and see us anyway. We're right next to the Arkansas River. And the museum, our mission, the job is to kind of share the information about the U.S. Marshal Service and to keep on their legacy. Here we have 2 pictures of what our museum looks like in the inside. So really cool things for you to come and look at when you come visit us here at the museum. Neat little artifacts as well. And so this is the United States Marshals Museum. So who are the United States Marshals? Well, the United States Marshals are men and women, just like you see here in this picture, and they're protecting and defending and enforcing the American justice system. They are to be leaders of their communities. If you want to be a marshal, you have to be a role model. We have to make good decision-making skills, some of that good thinking that we do in the classrooms. And then we also have to be accountable. That's like making the right choices, even when they're hard to do. And they're accountable to the public, that means to you, to your communities, as well as their partners. So we're gonna get started with the Constitution. Now this week, you probably have been learning a little bit about the Constitution, or if this is the first time learning or hearing the word Constitution, we're gonna go ahead and talk about it a bit more. Here on your screen, you see a picture of the original Constitution. It's pretty faded, kind of yellow, barely hard, you can hardly see it. But the Constitution, what that is a rule book. Did you guys make like rules for your classroom when you came back? Maybe you have a classroom constitution, or maybe you have rules and procedures or expectations. That's what the Constitution is for the whole United States. It's a rule book that we look at to know what we can do, what we cannot do, and what we're able to do, what our rights are. And this was written a long time ago. Does anyone know about George Washington? Well, he was there when the Constitution was made. That's how old it is. Long, long, long time ago. Okay. And these country founders, they wanted to create a rule book that was going to help us be fair and equal for everyone here in the US. Next slide. So today we're to talk about the First Amendment. The First Amendment. Another old piece of paper, just like you see here on the screen, the First Amendment is very important. Very important. It's the first rule on the list of all the rules, and it's about our freedoms. What can we do? What do we have a right to? And it gives us 5. Can you hold up 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know we have kinders. Okay, 5. So just a hand 5. So we're going to learn about the first 5. Are you ready to learn about the first 5? I bet you are. Okay, first one is freedom of speech. Can you say freedom of speech? All right, so let's go ahead and freedom of speech. Next slide, please. All right, freedom of speech means that we can share our ideas. We can talk to someone about our ideas. We can write about our ideas or create art. I bet some of you guys are great artists and are enjoying art classes this year. And so we can use art, our words, while we speak it as well as write it. And that's freedom of speech. However, for you guys to know at school is that freedom of speech must not disrupt the classroom learning or the school learning or break any school policies. So we got to have that free speech and make sure we're doing it correctly. Does anyone know? Let's go back to the last slide. Does anyone recognize that gentleman right there? Can anyone in the group either call it out, yell it out, or type it in? Who is this guy in this picture? Does anyone know? Now I can see when you're typing and no one's typing. You don't have to be afraid. All right, so that is Martin Luther King Jr. Some of you may have heard about him. There you go, first grade classroom. Excuse me. Is that Miss Pillar's group? I believe so. Thank you. Martin Luther King Jr. And here he's giving a speech for civil rights. That means just rights and freedoms for everyone at the March on Washington, D.C. Let's go to the next slide. Excuse me. And then so here we have two other pictures of people exercising their freedom of speech. We have a woman there and she's holding a sign and it says, "Mr. President, how long must women wait for liberty?" They're wanting to be able to vote like other people were able to vote. And so they stood outside the White House for 2 years. Excuse me, 2 years waiting. But this was a silent speech, so they wrote it. They didn't speak it out. They wrote it on the banners. They held flags, just sharing that they wanted all women to have the right to vote. The other picture shows 4 gentlemen, and they're sitting at a counter that African Americans at that time were not able to sit at that counter, and they didn't think it was fair. So they're expressing their right to freedom of speech by having a sit-in, and they did that for 6 months. And the people that owned the stores then decided after 6 months to break that policy of not letting anyone sit at the counter, and now everyone's able to sit at those counters today. My goodness, sorry. So, question for you guys, are you ready? Why is it important to be respectful when sharing your ideas? Why is it important to be respectful when sharing your ideas? Retyping. Oh, Gracie says, if you're not respectful, it may hurt someone's feelings. Absolutely. Good job, Gracie. That's a wonderful answer. Anyone else? Excuse me. Ariane says, so everyone can have a turn. Thank you, Miss Riley's class. Is Ariane saying that correctly? Thank you for sharing. All right, let's go to the next one. Next slide. All right, so if your teachers have downloaded, I'm going to show you what mine looks like. You can create a banner with your first 5 rights. It's going to look something like this. So yours right there at the front is showing the first one, which is the one we just went over, freedom of speech. And so I drew a picture of, we have a picture here of Martin Luther King Jr. and one of his I Have a Dream speech. So if you're able to do the banner yourself, you can draw a picture of what freedom of speech looks like to you. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to talk about freedom of religion. That is your second freedom. Now, freedom of religion allows all people here in the US to believe in any religion that they want. Or guess what? Or not believe in any religion. Doesn't mean that everyone has to have a religion. It just means that if you want to have a religion, you can. And if you don't, that's okay too. All right. So it also means we can go to our own places of worship. If you have a church or a synagogue or a mosque, then you can go ahead and you can join others and follow your beliefs. So here in this picture, we have two military members out at a war and a conflict, and they decided to be baptized, and they were exercising their freedom of religion, even while they were in a different country. Next slide. So here's my picture. Yours can look a bit different. So you'll have a pennant for freedom of religion. And so we have here 3 kids. They look different. They believe differently, but they're all here, and we can all live here and believe in different things and be friends, just like these kids are in this picture. All right, freedom of press is number 3. So what is press? Press is going to be if maybe your grandparents or parents have newspapers that come to the home. We don't have a lot of that nowadays, but it's a piece of paper that has the news on it. Or they may watch the TV and they see the news in the morning, or listen to the radio when they're driving to school, or even looking at the news on the internet. So this is press. Excuse me. They're journalists that write the news, and their job is to share those very important stories. And they want to keep the government, those are people in charge of the United States, they want to keep them accountable and under control. So they like to share what's going on in the US. So this picture here on this page, you see the White House, the background, and they're in a garden space. This is called the Rose Garden. And this is a picture of one of the press conferences that have been held at the White House. And so the president invites the press to come, and they record and ask questions and share with us what the president was talking about and sharing that day. So the presidents do that quite a bit. On the next slide. However, sometimes things happen. So like in 1918, there was a rule called the Sedition Act, and that said that you couldn't make or write things that were mean to the government, that were mean to the Constitution, the soldiers, or even the flag. And if you were, they would arrest you. So it wasn't always that you had freedoms, but now we make sure we have those freedoms. So my question now, so Q&A time, how can the news, whether it's on TV or the internet, how can they make sure that they're using their freedom to tell stories nicely and carefully? What can they do to make sure that their stories are carefully provided to us and done in a nice way? Oh, there you go. We have someone typing. Miss Pillar's room is on fire. They've provided an answer for each question. Did not come in. I don't see it on my side. Oh, there he goes. It's coming back.
Still typing. Oh, there you go.
It says Bailey says they need to write it down, and when they find out about it, and use the facts. Yes, facts. We want our journalists to use facts, not opinions, to share the actual truths of what happened. Very good, Bailey. Anyone else like to share? All right, we'll move on. So here's a picture of the pennant for freedom of press. And so here we have a boy, and he's holding a microphone like the journalist will have, and he's reporting live. And so that's a picture that you can draw if you do this activity as well. Draw someone giving the news or reporting. All right, our next one, our right number 4, or freedom number 4, is the right to assembly. Assembly, what is that? Have you been to assembly yet this year? A lot of us do assemblies, normally on Fridays. Let's go to the next slide. Let's see what assembly means. All right, the right to assembly means that we can get together in groups. So if you have like Friday morning rise and shine, and you go to the assembly, that means your whole school is coming together as a group. So right to assemble means that you can get together in groups. And during our assemblies, we can have protests. That means share our ideas, thoughts, opinions, and we can gather for different reasons. And this helps us share our ideas and show that we are working together. So here we have a picture of an assembly and protest of United We Dream activists at the Capitol Hill. And they're lobbying, and it's, look, the sun is setting, it's kind of dark in the picture, and sometimes people protest and assemble for long times. Let's go to the next page. And here are 2 other pictures of different assemblies and protests. So we have on the left-hand side where the people with umbrellas, they're doing, they're assembling for climate control and climate change, and they want to just use science and everything that they're learning about the world to make it last a long time for you guys to enjoy for a long, long time. And then on the right-hand side, we have, who's that again? We saw him earlier. Do you remember his name? That is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. again. And this is at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. He did a lot of assemblies and a lot of speeches. Next slide. So here, my picture is quite simple. Yours could be just as simple or even better. Maybe you want to draw this, your picture of your school assembly, but freedom of assembly is just a bunch of people getting together for a purpose. And so I have a lot of people that look differently together. Next slide. All right, so our last one, this is number 5. Number 5 is the right to petition. Go ahead. So the right to petition means that we can ask the government or our leaders to make changes. Well, how can we ask them to make changes? Well, we can write letters, we can send emails, we can even start petitions to make our voices heard. Now, this one's really cool. I like this one. This is something that you guys can do as well. Sometimes we go, we're just kids, what can we do? Well, you can do a lot. And so here is a picture, and this is a letter that was written to a president by a 3rd grade classroom. And this 3rd grade classroom, we're thinking, they're like, there's a Mother's Day, there's a Father's Day, where's Children's Day? They wanted a day on the calendar for Children's Day. They wanted a day off. So they wanted to have a Kids' Day. And so the class wrote the letter, and then everybody in the class, they signed it and they mailed it to the president asking for a Kids' Day. You think you could do that? Maybe write a letter to your principal and have your whole class sign it. Here are other ways that we can petition today. So there's like websites now. These 2 are from change.org, and these are both done by young adults or high school students and wanting to make changes. So we have one that was wanting to make sure that animals were taken care of and that important laws were going to be put into place to make sure that all animals are treated kindly. And so they wrote a petition and they shared it on the internet, and there was 852,000 people signed it. That's almost 1 million. It's a lot of signatures. And so they signed it, and they were able to pass a law to help animals. Isn't that amazing? Just by writing a letter and getting people to sign it. Next slide, please. And so here's that final banner. It is, pennant, and that's freedom of petition. And it says, sign this to tell the principal no more broccoli at lunch. I like broccoli. You may like it too. That's okay. You don't have to sign it if you like broccoli. But here we have the students, and they signed it, and they were wanting to let the principal know, hey, let's have a different vegetable, not just broccoli. So we need to, these are our freedoms that are being protected. So protecting our freedoms are quite important. Next slide. So our First Amendment is going to help protect our rights, and it's going to keep our country fair. And sometimes the government might limit these freedoms if they can harm others or create problems. We don't want people to be mean and say, well, I was using my freedom of speech to hurt other people. We don't want that. Next slide. So we learned 5, okay? So we have speech, religion, press, assembly, petition. Speech, religion, press, assembly, petition. Those are our first five freedoms that our Constitution, that rule book, has given us so that we can live in a country that is fair and just, and everyone has an opportunity, right? These freedoms, they empower us to speak up, to practice beliefs, to stay informed, gather peacefully, and petition for change. Now, again, I'm going to show you my pennant. Are you ready? So I hope that some of you guys, whether it's a classroom or individually, you can go ahead and make your pennants of the first 5 freedoms, okay? And then share them. You can email it to the link that you received your live session on, or you can post them on social media and then tag the museum. But we'd love to see your pennants. Is there any questions that you guys have? I know that a lot of you guys are ready to go, and that's fine. Thank you so much for being with us today and being a part of our program. Is there any questions before we close the session? Or anything you'd like to share? We have 2 more slides. All right, I don't see anyone typing, so I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. Thank you again. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us here at the United States Marshals Museum for a live educational programming. Have a wonderful day.